Our world and the things around us seem normal. But the fact that we can now fly around the world in less than 48 hours is not due to some grand coincidence. It is because there were many people working on such innovations over the last century. They all had the same opportunities, the same talents, and the same access to resources. And yet, only a few ultimately prevailed and had a lasting impact on the world. In the year 1933, two brothers with no university education, great technical knowledge, and little money managed to go down in history as the pioneers of aviation. The Wright brothers' first powered flight lasted 12 seconds. It was the start of a century of flight records, aerial adventures, and technological sensations. The Wright brothers were not the most powerful participants in the race to achieve the first manned-powered flight, but they were the ones who led us into a new era of aviation and changed the world forever. So how is it that some people are able to achieve things that seem to defy all our assumptions? Why do they seem to have something different? And if so, what is it? These were the questions that an author called Simon Sinek asked himself more than a decade ago, and eventually came to an answer. Every success story begins with a simple question. Why?
The why. Have you ever wondered why you do what you do every day? Simon found out that all the successful people in the world think, act, and communicate in exactly the same way. And that is exactly the opposite of everyone else. What sounds like an incredible discovery is actually the simplest idea in the world. The author calls it the golden circle. According to him, human decision-making is based on 3 levels. What are we doing? How do we do it? And why do we do it? Almost everyone on the planet knows what they do every day. Cooking, working, fitness, and reading are just a few examples. Some are also masters at how they do it. Tools are developed, to-do lists are written, and goal collages are created. But only a very small percentage of people really ask themselves, why am I doing all this? The why is not an outcome, but rather the overarching framework for action. It is the thread that runs through my life. What is my purpose, my belief system? Why do I exist? Why do I get up in the morning? And why should anyone care? So most people think, act, and communicate from the outside, and this is where the mistake lies. According to the author, it should be the other way round.
Once you know your personal why, something happens automatically that cannot be copied. It is called inspiration. The sense of purpose that arises has nothing to do with external incentives or expected benefits. For those who are inspired, the motivation to act is very personal. They act because they want to, not because they have to. The Wright brothers, for example, managed to inspire their team so much, despite obviously inferior conditions to other teams, that it led to a development that would change the world forever. While other teams, such as the Langley team, had the perfect recipe for success, such as financial backing and a team of the brightest minds, the Wright brothers funded their dream from the profits of their bicycle business, and absolutely nobody on their team had a degree. Langley's team wanted to be rich and famous. They pursued the result. The Wright brothers, on the other hand, were driven by faith and the conviction that if they could build this flying machine, it would change the course of the world. That drive was so strong that you were willing to put blood, sweat, and tears into it. And when you finally did it for the first time on the 17th of December 1903, The Langley team simply gave up because the false motivation of being first and becoming rich and famous had evaporated. So people don't act on what they do, they act on what they believe in. A woman doesn't buy lipstick, she buys beauty and hope. We don't follow leaders because of them, we follow them because of us. Now for the fascinating part. According to the author, this insight is not a personal opinion either, but is based on the principles of biology.
If we look at the human brain and its three areas from top to bottom, we see that it is indeed very similar in structure to the author's golden circle. The neocortex corresponds to the what level and is responsible for all our rational and analytical thoughts. The middle two parts make up our limbic brain, which is responsible for all our emotions and human behavior. So if we think, communicate, and act only with the outer part, information is understood quickly and comprehensively. However, behavior and motivation are simply not addressed. In other words, if we think, communicate, and act from the inside out, we are talking to the part of the brain that controls our behavior, and then allowing that behavior to be seen in terms of tangible things. This is how decisions are supposed to come from the gut. In reality, however, these decisions come from the inner circle of our brain.
Admittedly, if we always think and act according to our why, this will not be reflected in our metrics, as we will sometimes make deliberate sacrifices to do the right thing. But being purpose-driven is not about not having metrics, it is about prioritizing purpose over metrics. Simon gives the following example. If he is invited to an event and 500 copies of his book are given away, in the short term it looks like he has achieved more than if just one person buys his book in a bookshop. However, it is very likely that those 500 people will only use his book as a coaster and a doorstop, while the person from the bookshop will actually read it and recommend it to their friends. They will then buy the book, read it, and recommend it to others. So, over time, a book sale will lead to better sales than a one-off distribution of 500 books. So the targeted activity will have better metrics over time. It is no less profitable, and yet there is more long-term motivation and satisfaction. It is completely irrelevant to determine and know the exact metrics of a particular period of time. What really counts is momentum. That is the period over which things are moving in a particular direction. The simple motto is to put growth before results. So the question remains, must targets always be absolute, and do we even think about how we are going to achieve them? Here's another example. Suppose you want to run a certain time by a certain date. What happens if you don't run that time by that date? Right, you will still be a lot faster than you were before, even though you missed the target. You still need metrics because you need to know how fast and how far you want to run. But the metrics should be there to guide you, to drive you, to motivate you. This is how you will experience healthy growth and maintain long-term motivation.
Once we have finally become successful with our why, life puts us to a crucial test. Often, when people become successful, they lose their original vision and start to focus on short-term gains and maintaining the status quo. However, it is absolutely essential to stay true to your why, even when you are successful. This is because success can only be sustained in the long term if all decisions and strategies are aligned with the why. This requires real discipline and regular reminders of why you do what you do. You must be prepared to adjust your strategies and tactics to ensure that they continue to serve your why. So success is not about being able to give up your why. Quite the opposite. The why should always serve as a compass to achieve and maintain long-term success.
When we struck out on our own at 1 in a million, there was one very clear why. Our values. We had previously worked in the public and private sectors and always felt that we were not being fully fulfilled. During this time, we attended many training courses and seminars where we looked at our values for the first time. We kept coming back to the following 5 values: freedom, independence, inspiration, passion, and authenticity. It was immediately clear that our values were not compatible with our current professional lives. The real breakthrough came at the business startup seminar, where we had to work out the pros and cons of being self-employed. Although we found an incredible number of pros and only 2 cons that we could immediately refute, the decision was made to go into business for ourselves. So we combined our values with the idea of self-employment and came up with a very clear why. So if you don't know your personal why or are struggling to find it, ask yourself what your values are and which activity is the best way to live them. After all, as Kierkegaard once said, livet forstas baglejens, men ma leves forlejens, or in English, you can only understand life backwards, but we must live it forwards.
Defining a why for oneself is, in a way, close to a life's work or even a purpose. What sounds rather remote and religious is proven to contribute to a happy and fulfilled life. Here are 5 benefits of having a clearly defined why. Why liberates. Knowing your why makes you a creator rather than a slave to your own needs, which never give you peace of mind. Goals are all well and good, but if you don't serve a higher purpose, you will inevitably be chosen solely on the basis of your needs or the needs of others. This not only prevents fulfillment, but also makes you dependent and unhappy. If you know your why, you will be able to choose and follow your own path. The why is a compass. It will point you in the right direction. Whenever you are faced with a decision, big or small, you can look at it and ask for guidance. So you can ask yourself, will it help me fulfill my why if I buy this pizza? Work on this project for the next 6 months? Will I stay in this partnership? This compass needle points to higher, more enduring goals than those of your acute needs and fears or the opinions of those around you. The why gives you strength and stability. If you strive to achieve a goal that arises only from current, transient needs, you deprive yourself of deep, enduring motivation. Without a higher purpose, you are vulnerable to your own listlessness. Even small hurdles can prevent you from continuing to struggle forever. With a higher purpose, you have a lifeline through difficult times and life crises. There is simply no alternative but to fulfill your life's purpose as best you can, whatever may come. You will feel secure in and with it, and have the strength to jump over hurdles or simply kick them over. The why makes you successful. It gives you something very personal against which to measure yourself and the investment of your time. Without the why, success is something that others define for you. Society, advertising, colleagues, family, friends. You inspire. Finally, it is always those who start with the why who have the ability to inspire those around them to make a difference.